Sup, you beautiful bastards? Hope you're having a fantastic Wednesday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing I have to talk about today is this crazy story around Eduardo Martins. Over the years, Eduardo became a respected photographer for all the images he took in some of the world's worst war zones. His photos were published in places like the Wall Street Journal, Vice, Getty Images, Al Jazeera, BBC, and others. He'd also amassed more than 120,000 followers on Instagram, and his story was one of overcoming obstacles. He had opened up about being abused as a child, how he beat leukemia at 25. And eventually, he even turned his life around when he began working as a UN photographer. And he claimed those experiences helped him connect with the human suffering in these dangerous conflict areas. And his story was just so amazing until a BBC Brazil investigation revealed he wasn't who he said he was. It turns out, for years, someone using the name Eduardo Martins had been fooling journalists and picture editors by stealing pictures from other professionals, photographers who had actually risked their lives in conflict to get them. And he would make slight alterations to the images by simply inverting them, cropping them. This so software scans wouldn't notice the plagiarism. And many of them were in fact stolen from US photographer Daniel C. Britt. Here are some examples where you see the original image on the left and then Eduardo's on the right. And the thing that was really interesting is that the more people used Eduardo's photographs, the more legit he appeared. So the larger his client list became, the easier it was for him to get away with it. He was an established, respected photojournalist now. I mean, this guy was even giving interviews about his experiences in Iraq and Syria and how he saw the fighting in the streets. Here's one small bit from an interview we did with Recount magazine, where he said, "Once in Iraq shooting a conflict, I stopped shooting to help a boy who was hit by a Molotov cocktail. Dropped the camera and helped him to get out of the conflict area. In scenes like this, which are common in my work, I stop being a photographer and I become a human being. I cannot be impartial in these moments." Oh, he's such a lying scumbag. Also, a fascinating bit to this story is whoever was behind the creation of Eduardo Martins, they even went as far to put a face to this fake identity. Reportedly, he stole images of British surfer Max Hepworth Povey, and they would then Photoshop the pictures of the surfer in war zones. But ultimately, this whole situation came to an end thanks to Natasha Ribeiro. She's a BBC Brazil contributor in the Middle East. She said she was contacted by Eduardo, and she said she became suspicious because neither she nor any of the other Brazilian journalists had ever actually seen him in person. It just seemed weird that you have this traveling photographer. At some point, someone would have met him in person. So BBC Brazil got in touch with the UN. They confirmed he was not employed by them. Organizations that he claimed to have visited around the world were also contacted, and none of them recognized him. BBC Brazil also made contact with 6 women who say they had romantic online relationships with Martins, only to learn that they had never met him in person. Because, you know, if you're already gonna scam news organizations for money, you might as well catfish 6 women. But even after this investigation, all of this coming out, who Eduardo Martins is still a mystery. No one knows, which also means the person behind it could have a different identity already, or they could just as easily start from scratch again. And ultimately, I end up a little conflicted. I mean, like 95% of me thinks that this is disgusting. He was catfishing people, he was stealing other people's work, the work where they were putting themselves at times in the line of fire in danger. He was taking credit for it, he was making profit off of theft. But at the same time, 5% of me goes, wow. The fact that he or they, we don't know, the fact they were able to trick so many people for so long is kind of incredible. And it kind of makes you wonder, were the people that were supposed to be verifying these images, everything that were involved, did they just not care? Or is this kind of a side effect of trying to get as much news out as possible, as fast as possible? That the quality of the verification processes is not high? Does this tell us something about news outlets? And actually, I want to pass that question off to you. What is your takeaway from this story? I'd love to know your thoughts on this in those comments down below. But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and today in Awesome brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is of course a fantastic ticket app that takes the confusion out of buying tickets. They put all the tickets into one place, they give them a 0 to 100 score so you know if you're getting a good deal or a bad deal. And I have the app on my phone, and it is by far the easiest way to purchase tickets for any sporting event, a concert, or whatever. So if you want to make the smart move like many from the nation already have, click the link in the description to download the app, and be sure to use coupon code PHIL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. And the first bit of awesome is for you if you are not 100% filled in at the end of this video. Yesterday I did a sit-down interview with Dave Rubin. Today he released the first part of that interview. Tomorrow the second part will be coming out. So if you want to see more words vomit out of my face in a non-jump cut format, I highly recommend it. Then we got an honest trailer for Kong Skull Island, and a little extra awesome, the actual director of the movie is in more than half of it. Then we got a trailer for the movie Lady Bird. Then we had John Cena and Shaq on Carpool Karaoke, because why not? Then we got a trailer for a movie I had not even heard murmurings about. It looks amazing. It's called Hostiles. It's the new Christian Bale movie. It looks so good. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. And then let's talk about 33-year-old Tosha Sponsler, who's in the news. I love this mugshot. She just seems so pleased with herself, but the question becomes, well, what was she arrested for? Well, according to the police report, someone had reported a suspicious person or a potential shoplifter outside of a store. Now, I'll tell you in a second why she was arrested, why she was handcuffed, put in the back of a police vehicle, but the main story is what happens next. Sponsler killer wriggles around for a minute, she ends up getting out of her handcuffs. She's then looking around, seeing if she has an opportunity, and she jumps through the window partition. Then getting into the driver's seat and stealing the vehicle.
God dang! No! Hey! God!
She then leads them on a 23-minute pursuit, speeds as high as 100 miles per hour, all until this happens. Police then break the window, they're able to arrest her. Tasha has now been charged with escape, causing serious bodily injury, threat of a deadly weapon, aggravated assault against a public servant, evading arrest with a vehicle with a previous conviction, unauthorized use of a vehicle, and finally, the reason she was being arrested in the first place, possession of a controlled substance. Drugs. It appears that she had meth on her. And just like that, I have to say congratulations, Tasha, on making a decision so horrible. You went from one potential charge to seemingly 5 definite charges. But if there is a bright side to this, I bet you're gonna be popular in prison, because if you look really close, she kind of looks like maybe from Arrested Development if maybe did methy maybe. So at least you got that going for you. Then let's talk about breaking news that people from New York have known for years, and that is the Boston Red Sox are fucking cheaters. I'm joking about being passionate about it. It turns out they were actually cheating and they've admitted to doing so. But before you non-sports viewers tune out, this is also an interesting tech story. So the MLB commissioner Rob Manfred confirmed Tuesday that the Boston Red Sox use electronic communication from the dugout to steal opponents' signs and relay them to players. Now, for those that don't know in baseball, stealing signs usually happens when the other team has someone on second base. They can see the catcher doing hand signals for like fastball, curveball, inside corner, outside corner. The player on second tries to let the batter know what kind of pitch is coming. But what the Red Sox got caught doing was the modernization of this. 2 weeks ago, the general manager for the Yankees filed a complaint and presented video showing the Sox doing this. And the video reportedly showed a member of the Red Sox training staff looking at his Apple Watch in the dugout. Essentially, the way it works is the Red Sox would have an off-field person watching a camera feed of the catcher. And when they saw the sign for the next pitch, that person would contact the trainer in the dugout via the Apple Watch. And that trainer who was caught on camera would then relay the message to other players, who would then signal teammates on the field about what type of pitch was coming. And after being presented with all the evidence, the Red Sox admitted that they've been doing this. But on top of that, the Red Sox have also filed a complaint against the New York Yankees, saying the Yankees use their own camera to steal signs. That, of course, then feeds into the general argument we see in a lot of sports that pretty much everyone is cheating, it's just that only some get caught. But this has also sparked a debate of, is this illegal or not? Sign stealing has been a part of the game since people started using signs, but that's not the problem. The problem specifically is with the use of the Apple Watch. And this is something that Commissioner Rob Manfred hit on, saying we do not actually have a rule against sign stealing. It's the electronic equipment that creates the violation. I think the rule against electronic equipment has a number of policy reasons behind it, but one of them is we don't want to escalate attempts to figure out what a pitcher is going to throw by introducing electronics into the mix. And the specific rule around electronics is actually the specific rule about Apple Watches. They decided back in 2015 you are allowed to have them, but you're not allowed to use them to access scouting data or to communicate with other members of the team. But a question I want to pass off to the few baseball watchers out there right now is, what's your takeaway on this? Should there be a punishment? Yes, no, maybe so. I'd love to know your thoughts. Then in, hey, here's another reason I don't shop at Walmart news, let's jump to Michigan. Last week, a 51-year-old woman, her 20-year-old daughter, they were shopping in Walmart for school supplies. The daughter picks up the last of a certain kind of notebook, and there are also 2 other women there. They have their eyes on it. The daughter and the 2 women, they scuffle over who is the rightful owner of this notebook. At one point, the daughter ends up on her knees with at least one woman pulling on her hair. The mom then tries to get involved. She couldn't separate them, and that is when she pulled out a gun. And immediately, 2 things happen. 1, the scuffle ends, and 2, we see a face from a Walmart employee that is the most appropriate face for that incident. That face says more than a great painting in a museum. It says both that bitch crazy and I'm not about to get shot for this Walmart job. Now in the aftermath of all of this, it does turn out the woman had a valid concealed pistol license. The detective on this case, Scott Baton, said it was a senseless act of violence all the way around, adding that all 4 women could be facing charges. That seeming to depend on who the aggressor was. They're getting security camera footage. So you're looking at charges that could range from a simple assault, which is like a 90-day misdemeanor, all the way up to felonious assault with a firearm. But really for me, the main point of this story is this is why I have Amazon Prime. I never want to be in a situation that starts with, oh, that's a kind of cool notebook, and ends with a gun pointed in my face. It's too big of a jump for me. And then let's talk about this incredibly serious situation in Myanmar. Now, a little background, Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, is a closed-off and secretive country. It is roughly 51 million people, consisting of 8 major ethnic groups, and these can even be further broken down to over over 100, although they argue about the definitions and distinctions between groups. Main point, it is an extremely diverse country, and at the core what we're looking at is an ethnicity issue. I mean, just to start off, Burma has requirements that to be a citizen, you have to be of a certain ethnic group. And so one of the issues is there are a handful of major populations that aren't seen as Burmese citizens despite living there for hundreds of years. And the Rohingya are the largest unrecognized group with over 1 million people. So without doing a full half-hour video on this, hopefully that gives you enough background. So with that, let's dive into one of the longest ongoing civil conflicts in the world. And that's the ethnic conflicts in the state of Rakhine near Bangladesh. And this is between ethnic Rakhine, who are Buddhist, and ethnic Rohingya, who are Muslim. And just so you understand the perception here, the Rohingya are often called one of the world's least wanted minorities or some of the world's most persecuted people. Also, despite migrating to the region near the 15th century, they are often seen as illegal immigrants from Bengal. The Burmese government even refuses to call them Rohingya, instead choosing to call them Bengalis, which just reinforces the idea that they are unwanted immigrants. Additionally, the Rohingya are victims of systematic discrimination. The Burmese government refusing to grant them citizenship status, so the Rohingya are stateless people. They do not hold citizenship from any country, and that becomes a major issue for them for many reasons, including when they want to travel or leave. Also, the Burmese government does not allow them to have more than 2 children. So essentially, you have a government trying to stifle the population growth of an unwanted ethnicity. And over the recent decades, there have been targeted attacks on Rohingya people and their villages. But it is important to note that the Rohingya have been violent to their neighbors as well. The main point, all of this violence leads to an outbreak of open conflict in October of last year. The newly formed Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army attacked government border outposts. This left 9 dead, and the outposts were looted for weapons. The government reportedly responded with attacks of their own. They were supported by the Rakhine. And since then, there have been major back and forths between the two groups, leaving well over 1,000 dead and tens of thousands displaced. And the Burmese government has declared ARSA a terrorist organization, although a big note here is the US has not. Then very recently, on August 27, 2017, ARSA attacked government forces in Rakhine State. And this was the bloodiest single attack since the conflict started, with 104 dead. But here's the thing, while we're talking about an ARSA attack, the military often claims that all Rohingya are terrorists. And this has led to the military as well as Rakhine Buddhist militias clearing out villages of Rohingya. You have Rohingya refugees claiming that entire villages are being burned down, and if they stay behind, villagers are being shot. These claims have also been backed up by satellite images that show these villages on fire. And so we're seeing a mass movement here. The UN has stated that at least 123,000 have fled to Bangladesh, and 15,000 more are now crossing daily since the clearance operation began. And all you have to do is look online. There's quite a bit of video of these villages being destroyed, fleeing refugees, their dead bodies, which obviously we're not going to show in this video. And these are people that the UN wants to help, but right now they're unable to. The UNHCR, the UN's refugee agency, has stated that they are blocked off by military forces from reaching the Rohingya trapped in the conflict zone, saying they want to deliver aid, food, and water to the people there, but they're being blocked off because the government claims that these aid workers are helping the terrorists. ARSA also released a video begging the international community for help, saying, "I appeal for your immediate attention because even on this day, infants and toddlers were murdered by the military before mutilating their bodies and later disposed of them in the river. Our women were too mutilated after being chased on the streets and their houses being torched." Also, Chris Lewitt, the director of the Arakan Project, which monitors the violence in Rakhine, has said, "The security forces have encircled villages and then shot people indiscriminately. What we have found is that now after the killings, the military and other civilians are actually gathering the dead bodies and burning them so not to leave any evidence." And evidence is very important because it is hard to come by now. The Burmese government heavily restricts access to the Rakhine region. You're talking about evidence of a very serious claim here, that the Rakhine and that the Burmese government, that they are headed towards ethnic cleansing. And you're talking about the Burmese government who denied a UN request to be able to observe the military's actions here. And that evidence problem brings us back to a problem we have on YouTube that we've talked about in the past. Reportedly, YouTube keeps deleting and shutting down accounts that are sharing evidence of these crimes. There have been reports about how YouTube has taken down videos which were evidence of violent acts being committed, that YouTube's actions then make it harder for the truth to get out there. But now there are claims that YouTube's shutting things down even when they're not showing violence. ARSA has even claimed that YouTube has taken sides with the government here, tweeting, "Announcement, contents in our videos have never been violent. Despite that, YouTube has closed down 2 of our previous accounts. Therefore, we are unable to rely on the YouTube platform who are taking sides with the brutal Burmese regime." Also at the center of this, you have Myanmar's de facto leader, State Councilor Suu Kyi. She's been heavily criticized for her reaction to this situation, people saying she's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, which many are calling for her reward to be revoked. Yet she's also one of the people claiming that the aid workers are trying to help terrorists. Although she has claimed that this is fake news, saying that this whole situation is being distorted by a huge iceberg of misinformation. And ultimately, we're dealing with a situation where I don't know what's going to happen next. If it's just one military force against another, you have a more simplistic situation, but here you have hundreds of thousands of refugees. You have human rights organizations saying that the military is rounding people up and shooting them, and we have satellite images of villages on fire. It's all incredibly troubling, and I don't know what happens from here. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. Of course, this is the Philip DeFranco Show. I'd love to know your thoughts on this last story, the first one, anything in between. What's your takeaway? What's your thinking here? Let me know in those comments down below. And remember, if you liked this video, you like what I do on this channel, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Also, if you missed yesterday's Philip DeFranco show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch that. Or if you want to watch the newest behind the scenes vlog, click or tap right there to watch that. But that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.